David Zaritsky for the Bond Experience.
Joe Darlington from Being James Bond.
Oh, we are back. And if you've been with us for several of these, you pretty much know what to expect, but we're still going to tell you this story. So we were on a drive down to Washington, D.C. Who were we going to see again?
We were going to see Mr. Lazenby for Global James Bond Day.
It was amazing. Great friends. And we took some vlogs. So if you want to go check that out, do it after this. But a conversation ensued, and Joe really started it, and he said, you know, it's kind of fascinating. There's a bit of a theory of mine that the very first Bond film that each Bond actor does is arguably their best. And we said, maybe, probably.
Let's put it to the test.
Let's put it to the test. Let's watch the 6 films associated with each Bond actor being their first. Yep. And you can see who we're talking about today. Brosnan.
Yep. Pierce is here.
Dreamy Brosnan. So pretty.
Yeah.
But Goldeneye. I mean, so take us back. You know, what was your first instant with Goldeneye?
Yeah, this was interesting because honestly, now I'm sort of, I guess I'm 25 at this point.
Okay.
Am I 25? Yeah, boy.
I don't know. That means I was 25.
Yeah. So, I mean, the teenager discovering Bond and kind of watching the old ones. I mean, now I'm a full-blown Bond fan.
Yeah.
And now the 5-year gap is over. So, of course, they announced the new one and the trailers, but those first trailers were, oh my God, it could kind of get you.
So cool.
Yeah.
Trailers were amazing.
Right. Just got you right into like, oh my God, James Bond is back. I can't believe it. So this was, one of my first movie-going, not my first Bond in the theater, but as a full-blown Bond fan.
I'm very conscious that it's an event.
Yes.
That it's like Bond and you're really
Bond
into it
back.
at this point, too.
Yeah.
Agree.
Absolutely.
And I had less of a moment. So I did, of course, Goldeneye was an event, so everybody went to see it, but I was not as into Bond certainly as I am now.
Yeah.
But I was into collecting movie memorabilia. I was into like Star Wars and just other films at that time. Less so with Bond, but this was one that really kind of catapulted me into that. But what I found with this one, I got caught up in the excitement. So when the trailer comes on and you get that feeling, and you know Tina Turner and the songs on the radio and everything, it just starts to pull you in. And I'll actually start with this one. Because I went with kind of lower expectations. Certainly I was not like a major fan of Timothy Dalton. So I wasn't coming like we are now of like, I can't wait for the next Bond film. What's the next Bond film going to be? But I was aware of Pierce Brosnan as Remington Steele, and I really liked him. I thought, this guy's charming, he's good looking, he captures that, Bond mentality.
Yeah.
So I walked into the theaters, and I have to tell you, that pre-title sequence... Oh my gosh, and obviously we recently saw the movies again, and even when I saw it today, it is probably one of the best, most exciting pre-title sequence. It to me is like a mini movie. I mean, do you remember that?
Sure. I've done it too. Jumped off of that same, just so you know.
Unbelievable. I'm so jealous. I have not.
Very cool. It's, it's funny, and it's funny, you are refreshing my memory too, because it's funny, because first of all, I had some funny, I wasn't too keen on Brosnan, for starters. I remember, and again, this is back, Roger Moore had just officially retired.
Right.
They were trying to get Brosnan in, and he was a fresh-faced Remington Steele. And I remember thinking Remington Steele felt almost as much, it was a tribute to Bond, also parodying a little bit.
Yeah.
So I had mixed feelings. I thought, like, the guy's too good-looking. When they said Timothy Dalton, who I, of course, only knew from Flash Gordon. I hate to admit that.
Freeze! The bloody bastards!
I was like, now that I can see. So we did, Timothy came in and did his thing for a while. By the time Pierce comes in, I was a little more warmed up to the idea because I thought he was a little more seasoned.
Yeah.
He's a little older, and I'm like, now I'm seeing a little bit more. So I was ready. I was ready for the Pierce Brosnan era.
By the way, a little trivia on that. So I guess the producers felt, the public in general thought that he was a little fresh-faced. They actually made him wear a 5 o'clock shadow throughout the entire film. That was very purposely done.
Yes. Right. And which just goes to what we're saying.
Yeah.
But to get back to the pre-titles, yes. When that happens, you're just like, wow, holy cow. I mean, that is tremendous.
To the point where I get a lot of questions from people, I'm sure you do as well, is what do you want to see in Bond 25? I want to see Bond again with other 00s. And a lot of that is fed off of the Connery days, but it's also fed off of that Alex Trevelyan connection was so magical. I mean, it's two double O's going through it and having this mini adventure that obviously winds up somewhat in disaster, somewhat in escapism. And it's funny, when I watched the scene again a couple days ago where he goes off the cliff in the motorcycle, you know, the 50-year-old David Zaritsky's like, come on! But then, you know, the 20-year-old or 15-year-old David Zaritsky's like, you know, I'm getting all giddy, and then the place explodes. I will say my critique of little moments of this film, including that one, is the models. You know, now you've got CGI and things like that. The model work, I know a lot of people actually love it.
Yeah.
To me, it's a little Godzilla-ish.
It's a little easy to spot.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. But I'll tell you, once the movie starts, what did you think in general of Brosnan's portrayal of the James Bond character?
Again, and I guess this is going to be a theme throughout, where I feel like he starts out with one particular way he's going to do Bond, but a couple of films in, he kind of catches his groove.
Yeah.
You know, and I think this one, I always remember, in fact, my biggest criticisms of Goldeneye, the criticisms that I tend to have are somehow audible. I find that it's something you're listening to that I kind of never quite, doesn't jive right. With Brosnan, it's that mousy delivery.
Thank you, Mr.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
That Bond, James Bond.
Right. It's almost
very
whispery, throaty.
Very throaty, very whispery. And he's trying to play it his whole thing is very throaty, very soft-spoken, and very, you know, like he's too cool. It's almost like he's kind of doing what Jeffrey Wright is doing in Casino.
Yes.
You know,
some people say he's guilty of kind of mugging for the camera sometimes, like almost trying to be like a model, like Blue Steel-ish.
Yes.
You know, like, Bond, James Bond.
And I think you were the one who mentioned it to me first, and once you said it, I was like, oh yeah, his walk. That kind of cat-like walk he's doing, where he's kind of I don't know what the weird strut he's got.
Yeah, it's called projection. It's a purposeful thing. So I actually said when I talked about it with you that I liked it. In fact, unfortunately or fortunately, I started to emulate it as a young man. But it's if you notice when he's on the boat, and he is at the doorway, and he goes like.
Yes.
And then he walks through. It is these very staccato, purposeful movements.
Yes.
And it's an acting style that they do with a lot of stage work, because on stage you're this small, so you got to appear bigger.
Yes.
And he does it quite a bit in Goldeneye.
Yeah.
He doesn't do it in later films.
Right. Again, right. It takes him a while to sort of get into his groove. Yeah. And I don't mind that sort of stuff either, but I thought that worked okay. In fact, if anything, I kind of feel like that outfit he's wearing there is so cool. I love that you know, the tan pants with that navy, you know, that you you'd only wear for fancy boat occasions.
The double-breasted,
right. I mean, it looks great. I mean, he looks great. So it almost sort of shines a spotlight on what he's wearing. So yeah, I mean, his look is great. His hair is a little Larry from Three's Company, I think, but that's okay.
That's a sign of the times, though. 1995.
Right. There you go. Right, the middle of the 90s.
People had like little fros, you know, just little hat. By the way, the look is something we do talk about. So, I mean, I thought the Brioni, you know, the different fashion aspects in here, whether it was his casual, you know, he's wearing the sweater when he's being analyzed by the MI6 psychiatrist in the beginning, when they're in a DB5. All the way through, even into the military outfits, like the dam jump outfit to the last one where he's fighting on the satellite dish, were gorgeous. I thought they were perfect.
Absolutely.
They were very appropriate. I mean, Bond's been guilty, especially Roger Moore, of wearing tuxedos in the most inappropriate times when no one else is wearing a tuxedo. I think diamonds are forever. But I thought Bond was dressed very appropriately, very Bond-like. And let's face it, I don't care what you think of Brosnan. He's a walking hanger. He's a model.
He's born to wear a suit, yes.
He's going to look good in every... I mean, you ask my wife right now, like, who she would leave me for, which Bond actor, it would only be Pierce Brosnan, and she would, like, be like a shot out the door. I love you, honey. But that's true. So from a look standpoint, do you agree? I mean, he looked mustard.
I mean, again, it's funny. Like, my feeling with Brosnan is almost that he's too perfect. I mean, I kind of feel like he was the perfect amalgam of all the Bonds prior, including George. So yeah, he really is like a perfect kind of James Bond. Yeah, his look is spot on. I mean, every time, this again, my mid-20s, So basically, anytime I needed to buy a suit, what am I going to do? I'm going to pop on the newest James Bond movie.
Yes.
That's what I want to buy. I want the gray suit. I mean, this is the first time I'm looking at the pocket squares and saying, okay, I need to get a pocket square. I mean, yeah. I mean, everything he's wearing in this is spot on.
It's spot on. And by the way, you talk about the perfect Bond. One of the things I do think he did very well, and arguably did better actually in his follow-up films, is those components we loved in the other actors. So Sean Connery's rough and tumble, he looked like he could fight, to Roger Moore's quipping and adding just the right amount of humor here and there to diffuse a situation. I thought Brosnan did really well. He looked like, I thought he looked like he could legitimately fight, but I also thought that he imbibed certain amounts of humor in a subtle way. I thought the one-liners, Die Another Day, let's put that to the side for a second. But all the other ones, especially in Goldeneye, I think he had some great moments. In fact, he has humor in just his reactions.
Yeah.
So there'll be something that happens, and she goes like,
Straight up, with a twist.
On a top, with a twist. And he's like,
Right, right.
he does a double take. Not a pigeon in Venice double take,
Right.
but like a decent double take.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, he's definitely, he's very expressive. He really does. And again, everything about his delivery in this is great. Like I said, the soft-spoken part aside, he really does have a tremendous amount of presence.
Yeah.
I mean, you really can't take that away from him.
All right. So we have multiple bad guys in this film.
We do, yeah.
Right?
We do.
We've got, obviously, his good buddy, Alex. And we also have General. The General Aramov?
Yes, Aramov.
Oromov.
Thank you. And then you could also say that as a third bad guy, you have Russia. I mean, this was, it's so funny because one of M's lines, and by the way, a new M, we got to talk about that in a second, is, you're a misogynistic dinosaur, a relic of the Cold War.
Yeah.
So this was like, the Cold War had officially ended, but there were still remnants of it.
Right. Yes.
How do you think that was treated, the bad guy aspect of it?
I like that a lot. In fact, that's where my my theory comes in, where the back to basics sort of a Bond film. This is where you see that. It's funny when you look back on a series that, again, a relic of the Cold War. He's known for being a Cold War spy hero, but how many of the films actually dealt with that? Almost none, frankly.
That's true.
I mean, for Russia with Love, even then, it's really Spectre pulling the strings, even though they sort of try to blame Russia. Same thing in Octopussy when, again, but it's kind of a random general who just sort of went off to do his own thing. It's not so much Russia. So, I mean, you really didn't have a lot of Cold War-ish stuff. So it was great to sort of get Bond back against the Russians. Not even against the Russians, but just in that environment.
Even in the opening scene with the music playing, you see like hammers and sickles. It's like,
yes.
I know what this is going to be about.
Right. Right. The fall of the Cold War had just happened, so this is all pretty new. So yeah, I really did like that aspect a lot, and I like even how it's shot, by the way, because when they're in Russia, you kind of do sort of get that cold, feeling to it.
It's stark.
Right. The film is a little washed out.
Yeah.
And it works. And again, we've talked about films where they've decided to just drape the whole film in a certain color, and it doesn't work. But here they use it correctly. They use it to set the stage.
And let's face it, I mean, one of the things that I love about this film, and we're going to talk about a follow-up film, obviously, is the director. I mean, Martin Campbell is, some people say, he's by the numbers and he can direct action really well, but he knows what a film should look like. He knows what a scene should look like, how it edits together, and he really has a very good feel. And I think Goldeneye is a wonderful representation. They rebooted the Bond formula in a lot of different ways, obviously with a new M, with a new Bond, but the look of it and the feel. And by the way, back to the bad guy connection, to me, you arguably have one of the best henchmen, and it's not even a henchman, it's a henchwoman.
Right, yeah.
I mean, my gosh, this is not a femme fatale. She's killing people with her thighs.
Yeah.
So the power is in her hands, or thighs.
Yeah.
What did you think about the henchmen?
I thought they're all great. I mean, she is terrific. Again, you love that sort of throwback to the Helga Brandts. The women that Bond goes up against, but it's kind of like a love-hate-ish kind of thing, where are we going to have sex or are we going to murder each other? I'm not sure.
Right.
And this is a classic scene like that, and I love it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's terrific. I think Famke Janssen does a great job in the role. the accent kind of comes in and out a little bit, but we're not gonna. I will let that
Poor
go.
Famke.
Yeah, but yeah, and it's interesting too. Like, sometimes when you do multiple villains,
Yeah.
sometimes that sort of that's a good thing, and sometimes they get kind of lost.
Batman and Robin, anyone?
Yeah, Living Daylights. They kind of there's two, like, none of them are really great villains, so
Right.
they just get a couple and put them all together. We'll cover all the bases.
Yep.
So here they're kind of doing the same thing, but I think it's a lot more effective. And again, Ormov gets killed off.
Yes.
Halfway through, so we get it down to 2. So yeah, the villains are good, and of course Trevelyan has got to be one of the best Bond villains of all time. I don't know if he was. I mean, I can't put him up against somebody like Raul Silva, in terms of just sort of presence and gravitas.
Right.
But that idea of Bond's equal, somebody who knows Bond, knows his tricks.
To me, that was the magic.
Good. Yes.
That was the magic. Even when, Bond, he takes Bond's wristwatch and he turns off the detonator.
Yep.
It's like, this guy's...
Yeah.
There's somebody that's
Still press
actually
here?
more capable and ahead of Bond. I mean, that to me felt very dangerous. Like,
Yes.
this guy felt dangerous.
Yes.
The henchwoman felt very dangerous. And even the computer guy, oh my gosh.
Boris.
I mean, Boris was obviously there for the comedy sense,
Mm-hmm.
but he was so maniacal. I mean, you had 3 to 4 different levels of bad guys. They all work together. It's
Yeah.
not like, hey, they're siloed apart. They all connected together.
Yeah.
Now, we have to talk about an important subject.
Okay.
Because to me, especially even when I was young, I watched Goldeneye and I said, something's different about this. Oh my gosh. This to me was like the first, and I don't even want to call it PC, but this was the first equalization of men and women Bond, in the sense that you had a female M and she was tough as nails.
Yeah.
And you also had a henchwoman and she was tough as nails, to the point where Bond points a gun at her and goes, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
Safe sex. Like, all these things.
Yes.
Obviously that was done on purpose. How do you think that was handled in this?
Yeah, again, some of the things they do in Bond films are a sign of the times, and some, over the years, some will age well and some will not. This was a moment in time, and again, it was, I shouldn't even go off that way.
No, do it.
Well, I mean, it's
You're all waiting
amazing
for it.
today how, like, the strong female leads is like this big thing that's getting hit over everybody's heads. And I've always looked back at the Bond franchise and said, I don't know what you're talking about, because I grew up with strong female leads. I grew up with very strong, capable female characters.
Yes.
And I feel like the Bond franchise is mistakenly sort of, held up as something that had a lot of bimbos, and I'm like...
Yeah, womanization.
Yeah. But I don't know what... It's like, you're not watching the same movie I'm watching, because
Exactly.
I'm seeing a lot of very capable women. So the idea that they wanted to bring in a female M, which was great, by the way, because again, Stella Remington was the real head of MI5 at that point, and this was sort of a big deal. So the idea that they sort of mirrored that in the Bond franchise and had a female M was perfect. The timing was perfect. Judi Dench. What are you going to say about Judi Dench? She's spectacular in everything
Nothing
she's
bad.
in. So that made a lot of sense. But then they kind of go the extra mile, and they sort of call him a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. And, this scene with Moneypenny, where it's the first time the word sexual harassment was ever uttered in a Bond film.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Too much?
A little bit. You could have
Okay.
just sort of reined it back in a little bit. I get it. Again, I mean, we talked about Dr. No, and we talked about how, you probably couldn't do things like that in today's workplace, that's for sure. Even in a Bond film,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, by the way, I don't disagree with you, because one of the things I've loved about the Bond films is they're all about showing you rather than telling you. So in showing you, like I was watching Thunderball a couple weeks ago with Danielle. She hadn't seen it in ages.
Yeah.
And I thought she was going to walk away thinking, oh my gosh, it was so misogynistic. She actually thought the red-haired bad woman that rides the motorcycle, she turned to me, she goes, that's the strongest bad female lead I've ever seen. She goes,
Right.
that was phenomenal. They didn't say, whack, 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 it's a bad guy, whack, whack, whack,
Right,
it's a woman.
Yeah.
They showed you how powerful and purposeful that she could be.
Yeah.
This tended to say overtly, hey, what he's doing is wrong. Hey, he's misogynistic.
Yes. Right.
Hey, there's safe sex.
Yeah.
But I will say, I think the other things of the hiring and what they did in the situations in the story were really good.
Yeah.
I thought, just like when we talk about Casino Royale, I think they did some good things to, again, evolve and elevate Bond without having to be too PC. which I think, not to get too controversial, if I read the general consensus out there for Bond 25, there are people that are worried about it becoming too PC. Right? I mean, that's...
Well, I mean, Danny Boyle, when he was still in charge, he had said straight out it was going to reflect the Me Too movement. And I'm saying, reflect how? Like, that's, I don't know. I kind of feel like even the mention of that in a Bond film, no matter what angle they put that on,
well, you know what I tell...
How can that be a good thing?
Well, here's why it sends the wrong message from my point of view. It's not even like, ew, the Me Too movement. It has nothing to do with that.
Right.
That is saying that the Bond films in general have not been about strong women.
Yes.
It's saying, you know something, we've done it wrong, we've been misogynistic and womanizing all these years. Guess what? Dun, da, da, da.
Yeah.
I'm here to turn it around. And I'm like, dude, maybe you're watching a different Bond film.
You know, it's funny. You know how they always say that the nobody hates a Star Wars movie like Star Wars fans?
Yeah. Yes.
You know, I kind of feel like James Bond fans understand James Bond films, and they understand what they've really been about. There are kind of pseudo Bond fans who just know of them enough to sort of make the wrong assumptions.
Right.
And I'm with you 1,000%. It's almost like every new Bond girl who has to walk in and say, well, I'm a different Bond girl.
She is the Bond equal. You know, she is the female Bond.
Well, I'm Bond's equal, or I can go toe-to-toe with...
Right.
They have since the dawn of the Bond film. We've always had strong female characters. They've always been spectacular.
It's funny you say that. It's not giving them the credit where credit's due.
Yes.
And I know Barbara Broccoli is an incredibly strong professional individual that deserves all the success that she's had. She, I'm hoping, acknowledges the fact that her father and the legacy of this particular brand has actually embraced strong genders in general.
Yeah.
Strong men, strong women.
Oh, stop it, both of you! Stop it! You're like boys with toys.
Let's talk a little bit about something that may not rank really high on our love of this film, but I'm being presumptuous, maybe it does for you, and that is the Bond score.
Yeah.
The music.
Remember how I said earlier that most of the problems I have with the film are audible?
Yes.
That's one. Yeah.
Oh.
It's
boink, bing, boink, bing, bing, boink, boink, boink. Bing, boink, boink, bing, boink, boink. Boink.
wow.
Boink, bink.
Somebody heard that and said that's the new James Bond score.
Which is tough because there are some in the pre-title sequence they do a lot of like boom, 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 like good drum kind of like little Bond theme moments.
Yeah.
Then the tank scene, which I come to find out thanks to JBR Radio, that it was a different composer altogether. They actually went and got somebody else.
Yes.
That's a beautiful music score. But then everything else sounds like a bad video game.
It does, and it's funny because it's funny because the music plays very well when you're playing the Goldeneye on the Nintendo 64.
Well, there you go.
I mean, there's some parts of that, like the part where they're creeping around in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, I like that stuff. But then you're right. Once the action kicks in, ooh boy, it just sort of falls flat. When you notice the music, you're usually noticing something you don't like.
Yes.
When it's under the radar, it's usually pretty good.
Yeah, agreed. Now, one of the things that we've talked about with some of the other films, but I think it's worth highlighting in this, is Bond's associates. And I call them associates because they're not necessarily friends, but you got Zaritsky.
Yes.
I'm going to start. What an amazing character. What an amazing introduction.
Yes.
He's got some of the most quotable, best lines, my knee aches every day.
Yeah.
Just so many different things. What did you think about those ancillary characters?
Zaritsky is really great. I wish they left him to Goldeneye because I think he's great in this. But that's a different... he's terrific in this, and I love the idea, again, Bond... I love those moments where Bond, you see him sort of going back to something he's familiar with, meaning he's a seasoned veteran of what he does.
Yes.
He knows the ropes. So when he goes back in to meet a gangster who he's again had a rivalry with, and that sort of mutual respect that they have, even
Yes.
if it's not exactly amicable, there's a professional respect between them that plays out as the scene plays out. I think that whole thing is really great.
Yes.
Even the dialogue is, so again, it's funny, you mentioned before about how they tend to tell and not show in this film, which is very true. But again, the things that they do tell, I think, are great. And I think one of the things about this film you have to give credit to is the writing.
The writing is amazing.
The writing is really great.
Okay, so we've had these discussions, we've had some incredibly strong Bond girl, Bond women. I mean, we've got Ursula Andress, my gosh, we've got Tracy, we've got Solitaire, and now we have Natalia. How does Natalia stack up as far as Bond girl?
This has to be one of the few instances, if not the only instance I can think of, where they found a woman who was absolutely stunning in real life and frumped her down.
Have you ever seen her Instagram?
Oh yeah, she's stunning. She's
beautiful.
Like shockingly beautiful.
Absolutely beautiful, yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
and frankly, I think she's even gotten more beautiful as she's gotten older.
I agree.
Yeah, so they really sort of made
She's
her
supposed to be a computer programmer. They had a mouse and frump her up a little bit.
I mean, it makes sense for her character, but yeah, I mean, it almost feels like she spends half the movie in that dingy sweater, and again, I'm not knocking it in terms of writing or story,
right?
But yeah, but they just don't. Like you would not know that this was like a stunning Bond girl.
That's true.
So yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, her character is okay. Because I kind of feel like she's just kind of what the script needs her to be.
Right.
So when when I mean she is kind of the tough and resourceful type when she needs to be.
Yes.
And then other times when Bond is pensive, she's going to be the one to come in and have to deliver the lines about you and killing and it leaves you alone and stuff. And it's okay. Right. And it's serviceable. But she's not going to go down in history as one of the great Bond women.
So I'm going to give you the good and bad, how I feel about her. The more I've watched this movie over the years, is the good is exactly what you said. She's serviceable. She plays her role. She even looks her role because of, I guess, her particular role. She goes through the movements with Bond. They have a couple of interesting quips back and forth. Here's my problem with Natalia. If I took Natalia completely out of the movie, would the movie change? And my answer is no. He would still observe what's happening by satellite. There wouldn't be this connection. This Bond girl, unlike Solitaire, unlike Tracy, unlike even Ursula Andress, where has that connection, which you could actually remove her too. She is a expendable and removable entity within the story and plot. When you think about like Wei Lin and you think about all these other characters that are so core and hub to what happens. I mean, Elektra King, she's not really the Bond girl, she's the villain. But
she's moving the plot forward.
She's moving the plot forward. You remove her, you have no plot.
Yeah.
With this, it's dressing.
Yeah.
And I can eat a salad without dressing. He just saw me do it.
Yeah, and it's tough to, they do try to give her moments. Again, they try very hard. This is what I mean about them sort of slapping you in the face with a lot of the messages in this film. When they're in the train, what are you doing? Oh, I'm doing this. Don't just stand there. Get us out. Yes, sir. I mean, there's a lot of that.
Right.
There's a lot of, he says, yes, sir, in the plane. I mean, it's like, okay, we get it. The women are strong and whatever. But you're right in that they do seem to do that in a very superficial kind of way. The one scene that they do give her is the scene on the train where she's using her hacking skills to spike Boris and see where they're going.
That's true.
So she gets that.
Yes.
But you are right. And in most other ways, if she was not there at all, it would not make much of a difference. I mean, she is literally at many moments the girl that Bond is just running, holding her by the hand, running down the hallway, shooting machine guns, and
who's the I know the actress's name, but in View to a Kill, Stacey Sutton. She's Stacey Sutton a little bit in some senses. I mean, Stacey Sutton's there to eat quiche and scream James, James.
Yeah. I mean, she is there to be rescued. She is there to be rescued a lot. And again, like I said,
I'm being tough.
It's funny that we have this criticism because I'm agreeing with you in that. It's because I feel like the people who made the film, who wrote the script, are probably screaming, saying, "How dare you?" Because we wrote all these great lines for her. We wrote all these stuff. There's a part where they put a gun to James Bond's hand and she says, "Shoot him. He means nothing to me."
Right.
Like she picked up on Bond's line and now she's going to do it herself. But it shows her as being tough. So they're probably like, "How dare you? We made her as tough as we." But yeah,
I'm
at
not
the end of the
saying
day,
she wasn't made tough. I'm saying, is she
But does it work?
an expendable part of the storyline?
Yes.
I mean, take Vesper. I mean, take any of these other ones that you see in certain things. And I'm saying from a Bond standpoint, I like a strong entity
Yes.
from a storyline.
yes, I totally agree.
So, you ready for this?
I am.
All right. And by the way, Goldeneye, there's no book to compare it to, obviously.
Yeah, not at all. Nothing.
There's nothing. There's a place called Goldeneye.
Right.
that
The title has an interesting connection to Fleming, but that is
does.
literally it.
That's literally it. So we can't do
Yeah.
anything with that. So, Joe Darlington, do you find Goldeneye to be Pierce Brosnan's best outing?
This is kind of funny, and I'm going to give you sort of a cheat answer.
You can do it. Make it complicated. I don't care.
I kind of feel like it's not the Brosnan that I connect with most. I feel like, and it's funny, Brosnan never, as great as a Bond as he was, I don't think he ever got a great Bond movie. He got a lot of good Bond movies, serviceable Bond movies. They were the movies that you would take a friend or a date to, and there's always one scene in there that you're kind of going, just pretend you didn't see that one. My personal favorites came a little later, but if I had to give more of a political answer, I feel like empirically, I would have to give it to Goldeneye as being the best one out of
Like
the
if you
bunch.
took all the characteristics and added it up, it would be the highest scored. But to you, it's not.
I feel like I feel like you could make a terrific Brosnan highlight reel.
Yes.
A spectacular highlight reel.
Yeah.
But if you made somebody sit down and say, okay, now watch this one, you're not really going to get one that they're going to walk away and say, wow, that was a great movie.
Is it the Brosnan film that you could watch the most? Like if someone said you can only watch one forever.
I think if I had to watch one over and over, I'd probably pick The World Is Not Enough. I like a lot of
do like that.
action scenes in it. I like the interaction with him and Electric King. They were trying some different things in this one, and also bringing in some very traditional Bondish elements.
Yes.
So again, hardly a perfect film, but I think of the Brosnans is probably the one that I enjoy the most.
All right. So my answer is going to be, unfortunately, as complicated as yours. To me, I like how you put it. Empirically, if I say to somebody, the best Pierce Brosnan film is, I usually will go to Goldeneye. And it's because, again, it was that reintroduction of Bond. It was all the different elements. I'm not going to go over them again. But it does have all those components. If I add it up, it would get a score of like 92%, and it's probably higher than the other ones. It's not my favorite Brosnan film.
Yeah.
The most fun... Again, I go to Bond films to have fun.
Yeah.
I don't go to Bond films to, expand my thinking. So the most fun I have is Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yeah.
I just think it is action, orientation, the way he acts. He really is comfortable with himself, the way things look. I love it.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about that. So Goldeneye, though, from a functional standpoint, and I hate to be cold and empirical like this, to me is his best outing. Like when you take it as a whole, but I still have more fun with Tomorrow Never Dies, if that makes sense.
I'm with you. I think Goldeneye is that one that, again, has all those great Bond elements. And I feel like that's the one that sort of plays to my theory about they really tried to get back to basics about what James Bond is all about and what he's known for.
Agreed.
And kind of put an interesting spin on it. See, now, and again, this is something that I find interesting. Martin Campbell has essentially been brought in twice to resurrect the Bond franchise. And he does it, yet both of his films, Goldeneye and Casino Royale, are very different films.
True.
And they both have that certain thing. I think it works better in Casino, which we'll get to, a little less in Goldeneye.
Right.
He is trying to put a modern viewpoint onto James Bond. And that's where you get that kind of, sexist, misogynist dinosaur and sexual harassment. You're sort of looking at Bond through a different lens.
Right.
And I think that idea is better expressed in Casino Royale than it is in Goldeneye. It's a little more on the nose in Goldeneye, and it doesn't work as well.
I agree.
But again, empirically, I do think it's got some great moments, some very memorable stunt work, and overall just a great cast, a great film.
Perfect. Well, we are going to be returning, whether you like to or not, for Casino Royale.
Can't wait.
Our last film we're going to review, Daniel Craig's first outing. And but until now, this has been David Zaritsky.
Joe Darlington.
We'll see you very soon.
See you next time.
Thanks for watching this episode. If you want to be up on the latest from the Bond experience, just click on this subscribe and subscribe to our channel. You're going to get all the latest and greatest information, plus some exclusive content. And by the way, speaking of content, here's something especially for you, just because we know you. Talk to you soon.